talking about this crazy market that we're all working in. And I've got two wonderful guests with me. Adrian Kirby with Gateway Mortgage, stellar lender extraordinaire and fellow TRLP graduate. Thank you for joining us, Adrian.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And Taylor Walczyk, friend, buddy, confidant. We're both on leadership for Metro Tex together, and he is our esteemed president-elect, may I add. Taylor is with Coldwell Banker Dallas Global Luxury. And Taylor, thank you for joining us this evening.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It'll be fun to be on this side of the lens.
Right. Well, we also have a phenomenal sponsor. Yes, we are that big, folks, that we have sponsors now. So Jennifer Kuchai with Texas Title. Texas Title is attorney owned and offers competitive escrow and title solutions. Jennifer herself has over 10 years of experience in the real estate industry and would love to assist you with your next real estate transaction. For more information, please visit texastitle.com. And Jennifer is also a fellow TRLP graduate. Isn't that correct, Taylor?
Yes, class 24, hardcore 24.
Hardcore 24. So we are represented well in regards to leadership tonight, people that give back to the real estate community, not only in production, but in volunteering. And that's kind of what we wanted to do. This was not something quick to the draw, but I don't know about you, but every day this market seems to get a little bit more intense. And when we were putting together topics for this week's show, I thought we need to dial it back a little bit and kind of be transparent and vulnerable as much as we can and help one another out, because this is an unprecedented market. We had an unprecedented year last year and with COVID, and we need to figure out how to continue to be raving fans and advocates for our clients, hold ourselves to a higher standard, do our fiduciary duty and what's ethical and responsible at the same time, while still thinking out of the box and helping our clients win in this marketplace. So that's why the two of you are here. Taylor, you are a phenomenal agent, a moral agent, an aggressive agent, and that's why I wanted you by my side. And then Adrian, we've done deals together, and you were always an advocate for your client, but are so knowledgeable. And we've got to bring our lenders into the fold in this market as well. So I'm going to drop a couple of little hellos on the side while we get started. Of course, Gary Nordling's watching us. They're watching you. I don't know who he is. And then Jennifer, of course, hardcore 24. So thanks everybody, and Facebook and YouTube for joining us this evening. So first things first, Taylor, why don't you just give me a little bit about kind of what your just initial perception is of this marketplace? Be raw, use whatever adjectives you want to, but what are you seeing and feeling right now?
So it's a lot more fun to have listings than it is to have buyers, that's for sure. It's not really a fun market to work in if you have buyers, and especially first-time buyers, because they get really frustrated. And we're seeing listings with 60 offers or more on them, and what do you tell a buyer that's never done this before? We just have to have that expectation up front, and look, you're gonna probably have to put in multiple offers at multiple different properties before you finally get one. And that's why I don't like to fish, because it takes forever, it's boring, and it's you just have to keep throwing your line out and hoping that you get something. And I just I don't have the patience for that. So it's very interesting. It's unprecedented. I am so tired of hearing that we're in unprecedented times. Give me precedented.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll get through this. But yeah, it's been a challenge.
Now, you know what? Fishing is a great analogy, but fishing as a piranha maybe is biting your heels while you're doing it. Maybe the better analogy on that end. But
and your boat's on fire.
And your boat's on fire. Somebody's drilling a hole, all of the above. So Adrian, what about you? Just on surface level, what are you seeing, experiencing, with your borrowers across the board?
So the same thing, the multiple offers and them getting frustrated. So I've been telling them up front when we start the pre-qualification process that I'm not even going to give them a pre-qual letter until they're ready to make an offer. And then I'm probably going to have to write about 10.
Yeah.
So that I'm setting that expectation and helping the agents. And I just tell them that, you know what, you will get the home that God plans for you to have, basically. I mean, it's going to happen. Just be patient, and you have to listen to your realtor, and you have to be ready to jump on an offer. You can't hesitate or wait. Because, before they go home, let me think about it for a couple of days. So I'm really having to say, you have to be prepared. You have to be fully qualified up front because they're going to want to close quick. They don't want any conditions. Everything's got to go fast. So just get prepared up front and then be patient.
Well, Adrienne, I got to say, I mean, those are some things that I know working with not necessarily preferred lenders, but whether being a listing agent or a buyer's agent that inherits a lender that a buyer is not willing to let go of. You articulated more just in the, initial conversation period that I would say than most lenders do in most of the process. So I appreciate that. And I wish we're all a team here,
Right.
The more you can set proper expectations when then I set them, they're cross-validated. And I think that's the other thing too, is who do I trust? What do I do? Reading articles, talking to friends and family. I mean, in a normal circumstance, yes, you want to get the advice of your trusted sphere, your family. But right now, that could gravely, cost somebody the opportunity in obtaining homeownership in this market. But that doesn't mean that you stop doing what you're comfortable with. And I think that's what we all kind of aligned on when we did our pre-show, kind of talking about where we all aligned was, we still want to make sure that we're preparing people, but if they're not ready, that's okay. That's okay too. And the patience is huge. I'm a buyer in this marketplace. I've had to walk away from houses knowing I have to set a threshold because I won't be happy with myself long term if I exceed this threshold. So it's hard. And trust me, I have the empathy lesson more than I ever wanted to for our clients in this marketplace. But Kristen Price said, period. That is so true. And what I say to all of my buyers clients, I'm sure she's talking about what we've all been discussing. But Kristen is a phenomenal trainer and educator as well, and a broker. And that's what we have to do is we have to band together with all of this misinformation and light a fire on everything. If all the good ones continue to start a pushback, but to breathe some sensibility and confidence back in here, I think we can kind of shift things around a little bit. So I want to know right now, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Taylor, what's one of the craziest things you've encountered right now in the marketplace that just completely threw you off your chair, whether you were dealing with making an offer or just sitting on the sidelines? What's something that has just completely shocked you?
People waiving the inspection period. I mean, that to me just is so foreign, and we're hearing that more and more. There's no option period. And as an agent, I hear that and it gives me a heart attack because I'm just thinking in the future. People are so litigious these days, and let's say they get in the house and everything's great. They're excited for the first few months, and then stuff starts happening, and why didn't you tell me to get it inspected? Well, so one of those, I'm just very hesitant to do that. And at this point, I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. There's so many other ways that you can get creative with your offer writing than to completely waive your option period.
It is definitely one that a lot of conversations need to be had. And I'm glad you brought that comment up, that we are in a very litigious society as it stands, because that's what agents aren't realizing, is that when the dust settles, you still have 2 years to file a complaint with TREC, to sue, the applicable parties to the contract, do whatever you want to do. And it's all fun and games right now to win out, but this is a battle. This isn't a war. And I think that's not what we're slowing down long enough to do. And I understand. I mean, I'm putting, I think I put 800 miles on my car in the past 4 days.
Well, it's also like we were talking about. You want these clients if they go in and things don't work out like they planned, and 6 months down the road, you are the worst realtor ever.
100%.
And you don't want that. You want them to come back to you when they buy their next house and when their kids and their friends. And so you're going to be here long after that one transaction is gone, and your reputation has to proceed.
But I think what we're seeing is agents are so fatigued and tired themselves, because whether they don't have a great sphere of influence, if you don't work by referral in this market, it's exhausting. And that's what we keep on, pressing. Obviously, get involved in your association, get involved in your community, work by referral, and not to say that the other lead generating streams aren't appropriate. But Adrienne, you're absolutely right. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel when I'm doing what's right by my clients, because this isn't just one deal. This is generationally, impacting their families, and it's also impacting our businesses. And so, I brought that up of putting 800 miles on my car in the past few days, because that's pretty consistent. I bought my car a week after we went into the shutdown, because I didn't know what was going to happen. If the real estate market was going to tank, that's the absolute, that's the opposite of what I did.
Yeah.
I got a Kia. I got to tell you right. I wanted a 10-year warranty. I wanted all of those things on, and my car needed a lot of repairs. I've put 32,000 miles on my car. And, in the midst of, we weren't even, now that's a lot, we're realtors, we put a lot of miles on, but remember, for the first few months, we weren't doing anything but working and going home. Mm-hmm. So, those are the things that we have to sit down and say, I get it. I want to get this over the finish line, but it's not about me. That's that fiduciary duty that we have to our clients. Okay, so something that I have seen, which is just absolutely absurd, it's the same thing, is there's no scale. I think that's what people are asking. What's it going to take, Ashley? What at different price points? Is it a percentage? Is it something else? And there's no rhyme or reason. It's literally a dart on a dartboard. Let's just throw it, blow dart, whatever you want to do. And let's figure out what that looks like, because at 250,000, you might have to go 50 grand over to get that house. But at 900,000, I've got one under contract right now. We only went 25 over.
So I have a question on that. Yeah. So Sid, my business partner, and I have been talking a lot about this. And are you seeing or experiencing that some listing agents may be underpricing houses intentionally?
For sure. And I think, listen, I don't think underpricing. I always say you're wanting to create a positive emotional experience when a buyer comes in. So if you've got a house that still needs some updating, but they've maintained it, it's still beautiful, got a great floor plan, but you start to kind of peel back the layers and you go, I'm still going to have to, update this bathroom. It needs all flooring. I probably want to paint. If you're at the top end of the market, you start downgrading on price. But if I'm going to go in really aggressive and reasonable, then somebody gets really excited and says, well, where they're priced, I'm happy to make these upgrades. And then I know I'm going to have to give them more. So that's an okay tactic, but we're definitely seeing some, I think, that are coming in 50 to 75 under and giving these poor buyers the ideal that they actually have the ability to compete.
Well, and that goes back to like your piranha reference before, where like, all right, let's say you price a house right on the market value and you get, 7 offers, but then you price it 25 below, 30 below, and then you get 50 offers. Then it's like pricing psychology, where you get buyers that are just throwing money at you because they're so desperate that they're desperate to find housing. So I mean, it's just crazy.
It is crazy. And again, that's why you hope somebody, and no offense, everybody has their comfortability where they find their realtor, but that's why you need to find one that you know and trust through trusted resources. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going online right now in this marketplace and just going on some of these iBuyer platforms or something else and saying, show me a house, I've witnessed it in open houses. I'm still hosting them. and allowing people to get, and I talked to every single person. I had a house last week. I had 115 people come through, and I talked to every buyer that came through and every agent. And you could tell the ones that went on some of these other websites that I was not going to name, but they didn't know how to advocate for their client. Their client was having to advocate for themselves. And the relationship wasn't there. It was on unequal footing. And that also made me concerned, because if they're making an offer and they don't trust one another, hey, this isn't one that's necessarily going to get over the finish line. So even if they're the highest offer, there's the dynamic on the relationship is really important now too. And so, Adrian, that's kind of what you've popped in with is, we're a team. And as much as realtors are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, lenders need to be doing a lot of heavy lifting right next to us. And so what are you doing in those scenarios to give comfort to a listing agent when a buyer is making an offer?
So typically what I'll do is once the agent has sent the offer over, I'm going to call that listing agent, introduce myself, and then I help sell the borrower. I just tell them that they're fully qualified. Everything's been verified, no issues closing. It's not contingent, plenty of funds. I can't say how much money they have.
Sure.
And that it's going to be a fast, easy, quick closing, without any hiccups. They're solid, and it really helps give them a little bit of comfort knowing that, okay, well, here's somebody local, and they know they can get in touch with me if they need something, because I'm already reaching out to them instead of being one of those people that ghosts when you don't answer the phone.
Wait, that happens?
I've heard.
Yes. By the way, it does. And it does often, and not just with lenders. It happens with realtors. And we've talked about that too. I asked you guys, here's what I am seeing, which I think is a major issue as a listing representative, advocating for my seller. When you're putting in bold print in private remarks or an offer instruction that says, do not contact me, send only communication via email, I will not answer my phone. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Because gosh, Taylor, if I pick up the phone and I call you and you're a listing agent, you've got 27 offers, nobody's called you, you can't discern what's good versus what's bad, but I call you and I say, hey, listen, I've got an amazing lender, Adrian. She's actually going to call you here in a few minutes. Here are some of the things I want you to understand by how we structured the offer. And hear me when I say this. I'm going to be your biggest advocate along with my client, because I want to find a win-win and get this over the finish line. And I filled out my paperwork appropriately. Does that not give you a little more confidence that if I'm in alignment with 5 other offers, that, hey, I want to work with Ashley?
Right. And, we're in a business that's built on relationships.
Yes.
And so that is super important. So whenever you're saying don't contact me as a listing agent, that's just laughable in my opinion. But, to that point about relationships, it definitely helps to know who's on the other side of the deal, and whether it's you have a good relationship with them personally, or you do exactly what you said and just pick up the phone and have a good conversation. There are several instances where that's occurred, and we're the listing side, and then consequently we're on the buy side, but we have a good connection with that realtor on the other side, and it always helps. So this is a good plug, a good opportunity to say, if you haven't gotten involved with our association, do that, because you can meet lots of people and you never know when that's going to come in handy. So join a committee if you've not done that before. If you're on a committee, think about leading a committee and being a vice chair or a chair. And if you are in a vice chair or chair position, we have applications for the board of directors that are due in a couple weeks. So think about making that next step, because you never know when that connection or when those relationships are going to help you win deals.
Speaking like a true president-elect right now, Taylor Walchick, and I love it. But we're also all TRLP graduates, which is our leadership program that we've all gone through in different years. Adrian, what year did you go through?
Well, I'm class 26.
Okay, so you're 24, Taylor.
Yep.
And I'm 28. So 2 years staggered in between all of us. But I know that's where I got the bug, and I always wanted to see, should I get involved? Is this the right way to do this? I want to build my business. But I've had people come in and say, how are you going to build your business by just being with other realtors? You know what's insane is that's what I've used in this market right this very minute. I was talking to an agent the other night. I have clients from California who are selling their home. They've passed all their feasibility periods, but it's still a contingency at this market. And this was one that got double digit offers. At the same time, he wanted to know that the agent on the other side was not going to screw around. His exact words were, he wanted me to have the third party financing reduced to 0 days. And not because he didn't want us in time to get our documents together. He said, I'm tired of having agents using every out in the contract and unscrupulously using that to terminate for another home. Now, Adrian, I know that makes your eyes shudder because you would never issue a denial letter for somebody that's not denied financing.
Never.
Yes. But just like there's bad agents out there, there are bad lenders too. And I was able to say, hey, just so you know, I have this show teed up this week for this very reason. We need to take care of one another because in return, we take care of our clients. I'm involved in my association. They should lash me if I behaved this way. And so I was able to use my leadership and my volunteerism to do better by our immediate professional group. And that made him comfortable. And we won out on a $900,000 deal. I say only 25 over asking. That makes me barf just a little bit right now, but that's not bad at 900,000 with a contingency for a sale of their home in California. So it's doable if you have those relationships and you have those conversations. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat because we've been getting some good stuff. So Sherry said, yes, when you have a bad experience, you tell 10 times more people about that than having a good experience. Sherry, that seems like it's across the board. That's everybody wants to spread the bad news, not the good news. So we have to keep on doing it the right way. And then, of course, our TRLP is a great way to get involved in the association and an excellent way to build relationships. We've been talking about that halfway through this evening tonight. Yolanda had an agent tell me that she priced it 50 under comps to create a frenzy. Totally admitted it. I think that is where one, she shouldn't have admitted it, or just don't even have the conversation. But the fact that we're doing that right now is a problem. And that's why we wanted to have this topic tonight is we're being very short-sighted because this market too shall pass. And while we are seeing a lot of singular players in the marketplace right now, as far as listing agents, I don't know about you guys, but I see a lot of the same names come across when it's a little bit more of a balanced market. And not to say that you don't blackball, we don't do that, but I have trusted relationships with my clients. And if they say, Ashley, do you know anything about any of these agents? Does that change how you feel about any of these offers? Well, yes, Taylor's phenomenal. We volunteer together. I know morally he's going to drive it home. Adrian Kirby, she's an awful lender. She couldn't get anything pushed through if she tried. Of course, that wouldn't be the case. But those are the things that our clients, when we build trusted relationships, ask us about. And so you got to be really careful in how you're phrasing those type of things.
Yeah.
So no, those are all things. Now let's talk about, we have a decrease in affordable housing. We have a decrease in workforce housing in a normal marketplace right now. But now we've even got more of a disadvantage for our first-time home buyers that are taking advantage of some of these great loan programs out there, Adrian. And I think I can speak for Taylor, and he can too on his own here in a second, but gosh, getting a FHA or, an assistance program or a VA program, looked at right now is a little difficult. What would you do in a situation if your buyer was going FHA and they still were super solid? What would you do to help pass that through?
Well, probably, I think there's a misconception sometimes about loan programs. I think there's this used to be FHA, you had all these seller fees they had to pay, which is not the case anymore.
Right.
They think that it takes longer to close. I mean, I think there's some stigmatism, I can't even talk, with some of the government financing that is really not true. It's just word that you've heard. So I think, it's explaining that, this one's going to you can do the same option period. You can do the same inspection close time. Nothing has to change. Sometimes those borrowers can qualify for conventional financing, but FHA is a better option for them at the moment.
Right.
And so, you just have to reaffirm the sellers and the agent that it's a solid offer. It's not going to take any longer to close, and there are not going to be any issues. And then there's sometimes like, well, what about the appraisal? Because sometimes the appraisal, kind of brings some red flags. But basically, if your house is in fairly good condition, as long as you don't have chipping, peeling paint or a cracked window, you don't have anything to worry about. I mean, that's really it.
Well, and there might be a unpopular statement that I'm about to make, but guess what? I'm going to make it because that's just what I'm going to do. I had this conversation with an agent the other day. People are signing appraisal waivers without even really considering what they're signing. Not our clients, but there are other clients out there. So that's great. You sign an appraisal waiver because you think it's going to appraise in this crazy market. That is gut checking you and contractually obligating you to make up the differential if it underappraises. But does that mean they're actually going to do it? Do you have an automatic withdrawal from their bank account attached to that appraisal addendum that says you're going to do it? No, they can turn around and walk away and still say, I don't have the money. I just had something else happen. There was a medical reason, something else. I'm no longer this liquid. Come sue me. I'm serious. That appraisal addendum is there to have that conversation and gut check the client, but it is not 100% going to make it happen. And that's what I think listing agents need to discern as well. It's an important document, but it doesn't stop somebody from still defaulting on the contract. And right now, with this crazy market, you're going to turn around and say, I don't want to sit there and get this into contention. I'm not going to sue somebody. I want to sell my house. So that's something else that listing agents need to realize. It's a good gut check, but it's not the end all be all.
Well, and are the selling agents actually explaining what that waiver means to their clients? Or are they just saying the only way to get this house is to sign it? Here you go.
I would say probably not, unfortunately. I mean, I heard this in a seminar several years ago. I hope it's gotten better, but real estate agents are sandwiched in between attorneys and sex workers, untrusted professionals. And that is actually listed on professional websites. And that's because there's not enough of us out there sitting there and speaking that type of truth, Adrienne. So we need to have those conversations, which is why we have this platform. MetroTex has been amazing to sit there and give this to not only our members, but to consumers and other realtors out there to say, we can do better. And here's the information that we can give across the way. Now, Tommy did bring up a good point. Tommy Wooten, a fellow TRLP graduate, Hardcore 24. I think, was that with you, Taylor?
Yes, we are Hardcore 24.
All right. So Tommy said, tell him to sit this one out. That was in regards to the FHA or the VA or buy new construction. And I think that's a decent caveat. Now, Tommy, where can we find new construction right now? So that's the other thing. But you do bring up a good point that there are sometimes other markets or other products like new that might be easier for a buyer in those loan programs to get without having to sit there and give away the farm. But I think all in all, you've got to discern, what the right market or housing type is for that person. Taylor, do you have
hey, Ashley, let's go back to the appraisal addendum because, on this topic of VA and FHA borrowers, they can't use that addendum. It's specifically worded in there. We had a VA borrower and they were well qualified. They qualified conventional, but like you said, the VA was a much better product and option for them. And we talked with their lender and she, put it in writing that they had permission from the bank to pay over, if it didn't make value. And she actually put that on her pre-qual letter. And then we've heard some lenders say that they'll submit 2 pre-quals, one conventional and one VA, just to show, hey, they can go both ways, but they're choosing to go this way. And, just to piggyback on what you said, there is a stigma attached with it. There should absolutely not be an issue with going VA or FHA as long as the buyers are equally qualified. And, I feel like that's our job as to represent our clients, is to communicate that to the listing agent and just say, maybe they haven't done. We did a deal at the beginning of last year, and the agent has been in the business for 25 years, and they admitted, we haven't done a VA loan in probably 15, and
It's
so it
changed
was
a little bit since then. Yeah.
it's it's a scary process. And going back to the relationship aspect of this business, it's there has to be that trust from both sides. And if this agent were non-communicative, like we've talked about, don't call me, then this wasn't going to work from the beginning. But we have to have that open line of communication, and it's our job to advocate on behalf of our clients and to explain what it actually means to go VA and what are the options that we can do here. Because a lot of times in this market we're hearing that there's no place for it, but there is. It's just it's our jobs to articulate that.
And here's the deal. That's an abomination. The fact that would even come out of somebody's mouth and say there's no room for those type of loan programs in this marketplace is a problem. But we have to get creative. We have to figure out, how are we going to articulate our clients' loan worthiness with wonderful lender partners like Adrian? How are we going to be able to sit there and say, not only is the loan program not an issue, but understand this, these are the conversations I've had with my client. This is the process that you're going to have with me. And that's why it's so important to have a trusted professional on this side going through every single one. Because like you said, I mean, there are buyers and buyer's agents right now that are signing appraisal waivers that are basically bidding 50 grand over without any conscience on it or anything else, not explaining what that even looks like, negating option periods when you could have $50,000 of major systems, not to mention if it's an older home with cast iron plumbing that's not working appropriately, how much that costs, So there are so many things that go into this, and we need to do better. So Michael. Okay, we got a shout out. So Michael Reed said, I will give Adrian a shout out as I did receive a call from her on behalf of her client submitting an offer on his listing. And the offer wasn't accepted by her buyer, but she was the only loan officer that reached out. Makes a difference for sure. As a broker, my number one issue is realtors don't answer their phones. I tell my agents that every time they call, wondering why their business is suffering.
Thank you, Michael.
Look at you. So see, it didn't work, but what an amazing shout out. I mean, and how many offers probably Michael received and you were the only one. And I had one a week ago where only 2 loan officers actually personally reached out to me, and there were a lot of offers, and that's the problem. And we shouldn't have to tee you up to do it. You do it naturally.
Right. So, let's go back to VA for just 1 second, because I know that I hear so much negativity from realtors on VA loans sometimes when they're getting them offered. But here are some reasons someone might use a VA loan. Let's say that your borrower that's buying that $900,000 house is a veteran and has a disability, even, which he can get from the VA pretty easy. He can buy that house and put down about $75,000 instead of the 20% jumbo requires. Why would somebody that's financially not a responsible person not go that route? I mean, it just makes sense. So there's lots of reasons to do it.
Well, and you being able to articulate that and say, hey, let me tell you, while they can't sign an appraisal addendum, here's what I've been allowed to convey to you.
Correct.
And that is huge, and it is everything. And I know we've had several people, Alan Smith, who has said he's had a current contract that was with a VA buyer recently. It was an amazing experience. I've had the same. I think there's just a negative stigma that we have perpetuated through our marketplace, and it needs to stop. because as Jennifer said, VA loans are so great now. Our veterans deserve those benefits. So, because I'm going to be on my soapbox for about 15 seconds. So we sit there and preach about we want all these social reforms and everything else, and let's take care of fellow man. But when it comes down to housing, we're not going to do that. And that's a major issue. And I can tell you right now, I've witnessed it on both sides where somebody is sitting there saying they want things to look differently. But then when I submit an offer for a client that maybe not look like they can drive a Rolls Royce, and that's not the problem, but we need to change our thinking, not only in a social aspect, but in a real estate aspect as well, because those loan programs are there for a reason.
Well, and I think, to jump back to Jennifer's comment, that's a great way to posture it, is it is a benefit that the veteran earned. And, people hear, oh, it's a government-backed loan. And while it is there because they earned that benefit. And, like you said, Adrian, like, we're in a crazy world right now. Somebody might choose to be more liquid than put down a big down payment. And that's one way that they can do that. So
Yep.
it's all about how you, explain it, I think, and just help people get over a stigma if they have it.
It's pretty funny. Why it's going so crazy right now is rates are as low as they've ever been. So cash is basically almost free. But yet, no, we want to see more money down, even though we're willing to finance you at next to nothing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So I've recently had two buyers. One used a down payment program. This was a VA loan to use his closing costs just because he got a better interest rate than if he didn't use the down payment program. And I had another one that used it because his financial advisor said, why would you take your money out of the your account that's earning like 18% interest right now in your investments when you can get your money at 3%? That's crazy. He said, leave it. Use their money.
Well, and I think if we used more of that logic when we are actually presenting our clients' offers, it's the perspective and the understanding that needs to be in there. And we all need to do better right now. Just sending it, I'm going to say this too. There's nothing wrong with .loop, but just sending me an offer through .loop with no context, no information, you didn't pick up the phone, and whether it's .loop or something else, just CCing me on the client signing the offer gives me no context of your situation. So
Right.
I will actually answer the phone. So even if you think I won't, I will. You can text me, you can email me, but at least curate a proper email that gives me a full picture of your offer.
See, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves is whenever I check my email and I have an offer and I've never once talked to this agent, whether it be on the phone, text, an email asking me questions about nothing. It's just, here's an offer. It's like, for me, it feels disrespectful, but it also feels like a little spammy. Like, what am I going to click on to find here?
Yeah.
That, and then whenever people don't fill out the other side of the broker information, that kills me.
Well,
it's in net.
It's sitting there in MLS and you just didn't want to take a picture from your phone and put it there while you're filling out the offer if you have to. I don't care what you have to do. You don't have to have a printer to sit there and be able to sit there and copy and paste the information in there. But the flip side, and Taylor, you and I talked about this, but don't treat me like a child and put in the offer instructions every last line item.
Yeah. That also kills me.
So here's a question. Here's a question for you. So what do you think? So recently we had a agent sent an offer off and it was about, I think she said 40,000 over list price is what she actually offered, but she lost out to an agent that sent over a blank contract signed by her seller or by her buyers and said, fill it out. Tell me what you want.
Well, one, I think it's disgusting. That's number one. I think we're talking about everything from a legal aspect, but what about a moral and ethical aspect? And I got to tell you right now, I have an issue with that, because if that agent gets sued, their license should be revoked immediately. And I will stand by that statement. Taylor, how do you feel?
Yeah, I agree. That's not the way to do business. I mean, I've seen that in memes,
Yeah.
on Facebook, where it's like, we're tired of chasing our tails here. Just write whatever you want in. But like you said, that's a huge liability, in my opinion. I don't even know if it's like legal. I mean, to just send over a signed blank contract and then, execute the contract and then let the other person know, oh, by the way, we offered 100 grand over, and I don't. That's just not the way that we should be doing business. This isn't a reality TV show. This is actually business.
Oh my goodness. No, we hold people's livelihoods in our hands every single day, building generational wealth, taking people out of poverty cycles, all of these things for not just today, but for years to come. And for that to even be something that somebody's going to do is an abomination. So yeah, of course, as a seller, sure. Oh my goodness, I get to write it on my terms. I mean, that's like a kid in the candy store. I don't know that I, as a listing agent, though, would respond that way, but it hasn't happened to me. So I can't say it until I've been on the receiving end, but I would question what that looks like and if we're going to get to the closing table.
Well, but you have to ask yourself, like, how serious is this buyer?
Yeah.
Like, as a consumer, I would never walk in anywhere and have a signed blank check to the owner of a store. And, like, for instance, whenever we ran out of toilet paper at the beginning of the pandemic, you walk into Costco with a signed blank check and give it to the manager and say, hey, I know you have a case of toilet paper back there. Name your price. Here it is. I mean, no.
What's the difference? I mean, that's again, you're with the great analogies tonight.
He is good with them.
We got toilet paper,
fishing.
Yes, no, I like it. Johnny had brought up a good statement. Of course, hey Johnny, when it comes to multiple offers, agents need to be prepared to do whatever it takes for their clients. Not everything is as simple as a clean contract or waivers. The agents succeeding in today's marketplace are the ones that know how to harness the tools and resources they have. The difference between skill sets between novice and experienced agents is really being put in the spotlight. And that is exactly what we're talking about right now. It's not just about how you're filling in the blanks. We recently did a contracts session on Real Talk, and it was talking about that Sherry Fearbacher, who's on here. That's my mother, and she's also my nudge and my broker. And I love her dearly, but that's her passion project. And Christy Davis did that with us. If it's not a fillable blank, an agent doesn't even explain it. And that's the problem with this market, with the industry. You don't know what a paragraph is in the contract unless it creates something that you have to physically fill out.
I get contracts that have spots that should be filled out, not.
Of course.
All the time. It's like, how can you miss who's paying for the title policy?
Oh gosh.
Oh.
Now that's egregious.
Yeah.
That's a little different than something else that needs to be filled in. But, I mean, we could go on for days about everything, that we can go back and forth. What I do want to spend the last 10 or 15 minutes, though, while we've got an amazing captive audience of wonderful people tuning in, is what can we do to be not creative in a reckless way, but creative in a responsible way, like Johnny was insinuating. The agents that have done this before and know their clients and know their circumstances, what can we do to position them for success besides just writing a blank check?
So I think something, earnest money, people like to say, oh, I'm going to put, if in reality we should be giving $5,000 earnest money, let's give 15. On one hand, I can see how that lets the seller know that you're serious, but if they terminate, it's not real money. So what we like to tell our buyers to do is think about a higher option fee, because that is money that the seller is going to see immediately. So what can you afford to lose in this instance? So, on a $300,000 property, we had buyers put up $1,000, which is a sizable option fee. And, it gets noticed. So that's one piece of advice that I would give, is look at the option fee versus the earnest money.
And that's huge right there, Taylor. We put in an offer. Yes, Alan, option money is the gold coin. That is, you are correct, because what people don't understand is that our contracts don't explicitly articulate on the earnest money in the way we would like to, how it is released. But option money is very black and white. And so it is the first thing that we can do to discern the difference between the first person and the next person. But we put an offer on a house last night, and we're supposed to know something by 7:30. So hopefully this is a good evening for my client. But we have their home under contract. We had a considerable amount of offers. They were the ones that I had 115 people come through the open house. And so super solid. But an offer contingent on the sale of their home is definitely not looked favorably upon in this marketplace. However, there's other things that we can do. We didn't have an option period on their contract on the sale of their home, but it's also because we had so much documentation of all the maintenance and everything they had done. I had 50 documents and supplements for every single buyer to be able to review. So they felt confident enough that even if there were repairs that needed to be made, they had a handle on what that margin looked like. And so there was no option period. We'd already done the appraisal, everything else. We passed all of those things. This actual house came back on the market. The buyer loved it so much, but with the increasing interest rates, and their agent didn't tell them that they were increasing, nor did the lender, they turned around and said, we were at the top of our budget. We can no longer afford this house. And so they backed out during the option period, not because of the inspection. And so the seller is unnerved and they're gun shy. And so for us to come in and say, hey, we know we have a contingency. We did the same thing. Here's $1,000 earnest money or option fee. So, we understand. Just know that we're already this invested. We're not making 5 other offers on houses right now with $1,000 option fee going down the line, because I think that's also what listing agents are concerned about, is buyers are making multiple offers at once. So the option fee is there. My clients were comfortable. It was a mitigated risk, even if they have to terminate during the option period, but they wanted to get their hat in the race. And I truly hope that it gets them there. We did some other terms that were important. The lender got involved. But the other thing was, think about this as a listing agent right now. Sellers have to sell if they're under contract. That means they got to find something to buy. They've got a timeline where we have a lot of flexible buyers right now that are in rentals or transitional housing that have more flexibility on timing. So think twice as a listing agent accepting a contingent for the sale of other property, because their clock is a lot more hard pressed than a flexible buyer.
So talking about contingency on the sale of another property. So we had a client that had to sell, it was contingent, but they didn't want to sell theirs without having one. I mean, because it's a catch-22 right now on that. So they put in, if they were not under contract within 10 days, which was the same period they gave for their option, that the sellers could cancel the contract and keep their option fee. They gave the sellers that option. But the buyers got the contract, and their house was under contract within 10 days.
So, I mean, that's okay. I mean, that was, hey, you're taking a risk. We're taking a risk. Here's what you can do. And I understand that. So that is, and now, it's hard with our contracts sometimes, because we have to be careful that we're not playing law,
Correct.
And doing that. And so from a lender side and from a realtor side, I think there's probably different, but I mean, for me, that is something that you sit there and you say, okay, I understand. We're on equal footing here. We both are on a level playing field. And I think that's where we have to get people to, is to feel like one doesn't have so much more leverage of the other. Alan, I agree. Their agents should be fired for not locking the rate at the accepted contract. So, there's a lot of agents that should be fired right now. So, we'll see how that plays out. Johnny brought in another statement. Don't let cash be an issue. If the listing agent has communicated that it will need to be cash, or it would make the difference between choosing their offer, use the tools you have and talk to hard money lenders that will buy the property via cash for your buyer and allow them to secure their traditional financing. He's not wrong. What Johnny just said, though, is why we're in this market right now. Okay. We've created this ecosystem where sellers think, I can't sell my home because there's no inventory to buy. So why would I sell my house that I'm comfortable in? It might not be my end all be all, but I'll have no landing pad. I'll have to go into transitional housing. I have 3 dogs. I have a small child. I'm talking about my own personal situation, by the way, because I'm a buyer in this marketplace. So I'm like, those are the things that we're getting faced with by potential sellers. And I know, Taylor, we've talked about this again. I can't assure you anything, but what I can tell you is, here's what's happening. We do have flexible buyers in the marketplace. We do have people that have secured transitional housing that we can curate a lease back to give you that time and that leverage and that teeth to go and make an offer on another home. It's not going to be easy, but you trust me and I trust you, and we have a mutual respect. This is what you want to do. We're going to battle together and we're going to get it done. And if that doesn't work, you do what Johnny said. You find a bridge loan. You go to a hard money lender. Hey, if you're going to have to spend $50,000 to $75,000 over ask right now anyways, if you can mitigate some of that cash, that might not be the worst thing in the world. But all of those circumstances are circumstantial, and so you have to make sure those conversations are being had within context.
Also delayed financing. So if you've got a borrower that has cash or can access cash to pay cash for the house, they have up to 6 months, if they use their own money to buy the house, to get a mortgage to reimburse themselves.
I mean, I think, I think, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, so a lot of people have assets they could liquidate.
Sure.
But they don't want to. But if they liquidate it, they can pay cash. And then once they've closed, they can do their financing and they get their money right back.
Well, and Adrienne, that's where someone like you comes in and says, let's have the conversation. And if a client says, hey, I've got all these assets that I can liquidate, but I don't want to keep it in my house long term.
Right.
Let me call Adrienne. Let me call so-and-so and let's have this discussion of what this looks like. There still might be penalties. There still might be things that you have to go through, but at least it gets you there. So yes, I know. Thank you, Dustin, who was our phenomenal back-end host. I've never been speechless on a show before. I have not. It took me a minute to sit there and actually digest because Adrienne is just blowing my mind today on lending. So no, I mean, all right, 6:23. I told you guys this would go fast.
Oh, wow.
We have 7 minutes left. Taylor, I want to punt to you because, again, like I'm gonna talk about, you're a president-elect of our association. You're extremely involved. You were instrumental in encouraging me to get more involved. And I want to hear what that looks like, from the standpoint of, what have you learned? What have you learned? What has helped your clients being involved in not only MetroText, but educating yourself and being around some wonderful people that are on the show tonight to help you win out in this marketplace?
So that's a long story.
Yeah.
But it boils down to just knowing what you don't know and surrounding yourself with knowledgeable people. I remember, the first exposure that I had to our association was from an MLS meeting, and I heard Christina Dubry. I don't know if she's out there watching, but hey, Christina. talk about the leadership program and what it meant to her. And she would get emotional and start crying about it. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. You know, I always felt like I missed out in college because I wasn't part of a fraternity. And, you know, I felt like, oh, this is cool. I want to do this. This looks fun. But what I got out of it, you know, beyond that is what really was important. I grew so much, not as a only as a person, but as a professional in this industry. And, you know, just one thing I love about real estate is how, you know, willing we all are to offer up what we know. It's, you know, we're all competitors, but we really aren't if you think about it. We're all in the same sandbox, and I can pick up the phone and call half a dozen people if I'm stumped. And again, it goes back to answering your phone. All of the successful people do, and you know, just bouncing ideas off of each other. So you know, it's fundamental in the growth that I've experienced to be involved in this association. And so if you're on the fence and you're thinking, what's in it for me? Everything. And you never know what you're going to learn. You never know who you're going to meet and what doors will open for you. So just get off the fence and do it. And Ashley, you are like one of the most inspirational people because that's what you did. You just went full force into this. And, you know, thank you. Our association and our industry is better because of it.
Well, thank you, Taylor. And you were chair of TRLP when I did it. So I think you have a little to do with it, but that's what we have to keep on doing is feeding. Again, I use the term the ecosystem, and you benefit, then you have to go back and give back.
Right.
And Adrian, that's where I met you. You were one of the rocks my year, but then you were the lender on the other side of one of my listings while I was going through the beginning of the program. And so not only were you a great, you know, just mentor in the program, but I got to work alongside you at the same time. And it just made that experience, because it was a little challenging at
It
times.
was.
It was, but
Not the lending side.
the lending side was not challenging. But you were phenomenal. And it was so amazing that I'm like, wait a second. She's the lender. I just met her 2 days ago. We're going through this program. And it was just like, I mean, everything aligned. And so I'm so appreciative for that too. But what has being involved been able to do for your business personally, professionally, the past few years?
Well, personally, I have just met a lot of really good friends. I mean, really bonded, made some good friends. Professionally, it has really grown my business. It has taught me a lot, especially, you know, I was on forms and contracts. So, as a lender, I probably know more about your forms and contracts than some other loan officers might, just because I was on that committee for a couple of years. I've been on several of the committees, government affairs, absolutely love it, still on it. And, but the people that I've met and the relationships and being able to pick up the phone and call somebody, even, you know, if we have a challenging, I can call one of my other lender friends that I've met. I can call any of the realtors if I've got a scenario, call any of you guys and say, hey, here's what we're dealing with. What do you think? Because, you know, we all bounce things off of each other, and eventually we're going to come up with some sort of a solution if we kind of come together, because we'll have more thoughts. You know, the more thoughts you have and the more ideas, then you come up with a good one. So it's definitely grown me as a person and a lender, and I've just really loved it. I it's an experience that I think everybody should have, because it's kind of like a little sorority. We should have a secret handshake.
We should have a, you
Crew
know,
22 probably does. I don't know.
yeah, no, you know, and it's been so amazing for me because again, I was told what is networking with other realtors and other people already in your profession going to do, because you're going to get your clients outside of, you know, your professional circle. Well, it's not always about getting clients because there's a million people outside this door right now. But unless I have the confidence and the tools like Johnny talked about and the resources and all of these other things back it up, it does nothing that I have 100 million people at my fingertips to be able to connect with. And so I got to tell you, I joined TRLP in 2018, And my business has grown leaps and bounds beyond where I ever could have imagined it. But at the same time, my just internal personal confidence has completely changed. I was always a red, red, red. I was the most red in my class. I had actually no other colors on my name tag, by the way. I know that's a shock. But at the same time, I learned that that wasn't a bad thing, that it was a good thing, and to not be ashamed that I was so dominant in what I did, but I learned the positives from it. And it was just such an amazing experience. And so, yes, we've given so many plugs on here to join TRLP because it's just the starting point of how to get more involved in the association. The committee work, like Taylor was talking about, and Adrian was talking about, but TRLP, it's just an amazing personal and professional experience, and then it will lead you to so much more growth. And when you are on the other side from somebody that has gone through it, you know what? You do care about your business. You do care about doing it the right way, and it does matter. And maybe in this crazy frenzied marketplace, we're losing sight of that right now. But again, this too shall pass. And I think Sherry said, like a kidney stone, so, it will, but we will get out on the other side. And that's what's important to remember. So it is 6:30. We are prompt in getting off. And I told you, Adrian, because you have another client meeting that you have to go to because work never stops. Yeah. But just a quick send off, say goodbye, and any parting words you have for everyone here.
I'm going to say thank you for having me because I really enjoyed it because, I learn something every time I'm around you guys. And so I appreciate that very much.
Thank you as well. Taylor?
Yeah, ditto. Thank you for having me on. And, we've done a lot of talking about TRLP. If you've gone through TRLP and you're looking for the next step, apply for the board of directors. Applications are going to be due soon. We would love to see, some new blood in the boardroom. So apply. If you have any questions, go to mymentortext.com and you will find the link to the application.
Well, and Taylor's absolutely right. We do. I think people have the perception that we're not an approachable, welcoming association that wants new blood. You know what? I wasn't in leadership before I did TRLP, and then I applied for the board of directors after I graduated. It was the best decision I ever made. So you don't have to be involved for 5 or 10 years to get involved. So make your voice heard, get involved, reach out to any one of us if you want to learn more about it. We'll happily answer the phone, not in private remarks that do not call me. Again, thank you for joining for Real Talk, where we put the real in real estate and also try to bring some value to the rest of our real estate public. So enjoy your evening, and we will see you guys again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye-bye.